What's up, everybody? This is Paul with the Mysterious Huntsman Podcast. I'm back with another episode, and these things just keep rolling along, and I'm so thankful for all the emails and the messages that I'm getting, and I'm going to get to all you guys as soon as I can. But tonight, I've got a special guest from Alabama, which is my home state, and we're going to be talking to Bigfoot Bob with the Spectral Wolfpack Paranormal. I really need to work on saying paranormal because it gives me trouble. But anyway, can't wait to talk to Bigfoot Bob, and we're going to welcome him into the show and see what's going on down in the great state of Alabama. Hey, Bigfoot Bob, this is Paul with the Mysterious Huntsman Podcast. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, and I'm looking forward to talking some high strangeness in Alabama and other places in the country as well.
Well, yeah, it's you and I both being from Alabama. We both know that Alabama is a kind of an untapped resource of all things weird, paranormal, high strangeness, and a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. When you think about Alabama, you don't really go straight to the paranormal or anything like that, and there's not a lot of locations that are available for like teams to go investigate, like if someone who owns it like rents it out for that purpose, like in some of the other states. But when you get down to it, there's actually quite a lot of history, sightings, and strange encounters and experiences that people have had in this state.
Yeah, for sure. And you can go back hundreds of years, and especially with a lot of the Native Americans, their accounts of, like, if you're talking about cryptid sighting, Bigfoot sightings, or super large alligators. I know there was something back near the Florida Panhandle years ago called Two-Toed Tom, which is
Two-Toed Tom. Yeah.
So you know about that one. But yeah, it's crazy, man. And I heard about your site, and you've got thousands of followers on and you're with the good grief, it was the Spectral Wolfpack Paranormal. That's your team, right?
Yeah, so I do Spectral Wolfpack Paranormal, the Bigfoot Bob. So I kind of keep my Bigfoot and paranormal kind of separate on as far as where I put the videos up, which is something I started doing just because some people who are into Bigfoot aren't into paranormal,
right?
And vice versa. Even though sometimes there are connections and things that happen with certain sightings and certain encounters that might be considered paranormal, or just strange things that happen in Bigfoot hotspots or areas that are unexplainable, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, like you said, the Native Americans in this area specifically had legends of like ogres and what people call the little people, just kind of like the fae, like the European fairies and things like that, and gnomes and goblins. And we've had sightings of all kinds of different things in Alabama that a lot of people probably don't even know about. The Alabama White Thing.
Oh, yeah.
Witch legends. So, and like 13 Alabama Ghosts and Jeffrey, which is a famous book that I know a lot of Alabama paranormal investigators got inspired by, reading that in elementary school. And so there's a lot to dig into once you start looking. But
yeah, it and you mentioned the whole little people thing and the fairy, the fae folk. Isn't it odd how all cultures across the world have these stories in their backgrounds, whether it's like the little people or the star people, or they were taught this by beings that came from the sky. It's kind of like transcended across the entire world. It's just really odd.
Yeah, I love reading about the little people and the fae, because I actually had an encounter with what I think was something of that realm, actually in Talladega National Forest here in Alabama, which, is close to the whole forest as a whole is like almost 400,000 acres. It's like right under that as far as like how much forest is there. And I was out in the High Falls area, and I actually was out with another person and my dog, and we had just kind of gone out to relax and camp because I'm a big like hiker and camper, and I did the Appalachian Trail and have done lots of hiking throughout my life. So we went out to camp, we set up our tent, and we're just kind of hanging out, and then we laid down and my dog started barking, and we looked over and we saw these like blue strobing lights like coming toward us in the woods. And as it got closer, it was like just this small, at first it was just these two small blue strobing lights. One of them flew right up to our tent and like landed next to the tent and like dimmed its light down. And then it took me a minute to like see it, but when I saw it, it looked like it had like translucent like butterfly wings, and I could see it's like it was like holding its light like dim. And then I pointed at it and whispered. I was like, "There it is!" And all of a sudden, it darted up and it like shot through the forest floor really fast. You can tell whatever it was like intelligent the way it flew. I mean, it was flying and even in and out of trees. And so those two left, and a couple hours later, the dog started barking again, and we woke up, because at this point we had like fallen asleep. We woke up and looked out to see 6 or 7 of these things just like hovering outside the tent. And I remember feeling this like weird, like euphoria feeling, and then like all I remember is like waking up the next day and being like, what happened last night? And like we went and tried to do research to see what kind of bugs like have blue bioluminescence, and like we couldn't find anything that matched what we saw, other than like will-o'-wisps or something from the fairy realm. So that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned will-o'-the-wisp. I was gonna bring that up because that's a long history of leading people into forests to get them lost, or kind of a trickster spirit kind of deal. So, and here's what's weird, and I know you've heard about this with the reported Bigfoot sightings or Sasquatch, and a lot of people have seen orbs or lights kind of in conjunction with seeing a Bigfoot. And do you think this might be like something maybe that would explain what they're seeing? You just kind of actually got a closer look at it?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I mean, I don't like to speak in absolutes or anything, of course, because none of us actually know. But just from what I've experienced personally, going out there and everything, and being in a Bigfoot hotspot like the National Forest, which I'll tell my own personal sighting in a second too. But seeing these things, I'm not sure if they're all some kind of like nature protectors or some kind of like nature spirits or just nature beings that we haven't discovered yet that are very intelligent. I don't, there could be a connection. One thing that I found in my research on the little people in the Fae was that there are certain legends of certain types of Fae that are said to be able to like transform into bigger creatures and monsters in order to like scare someone out of the forest or things like that. So, could it be possible that the dogmen or whatever people are seeing is actually a smaller entity or being that can transform into that? And, maybe that's why we don't see them all the time, or we don't have a body. But I don't know, that's just a theory, just like anyone is going to have any number of theories. And like I said, I'm right in the middle. I stay open-minded to all the possibilities. Could be flesh and blood. It could be supernatural. Could be both. I personally, I don't know. But I do find it interesting that people have those sightings of the strange lights. People have UFO sightings in Bigfoot hotspots. There's Bigfoot activity near cemeteries and power lines and all kinds of weird connections and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And it's like I was speaking just a few weeks ago with the MUFON director of Tennessee up here, which is the Mutual UFO Network for anyone listening. But Angelia Shear up here is a wealth of knowledge and information, and just a researcher among researchers up here, and she's seeing an increase in like all of these type of stuff that you're talking about, the orbs, the Bigfoot activity, the UFO activity, even the paranormal stuff, possibly the haunted locations. It's like we were talking, and she's starting to see like a connection between everything. Like when you start having this, it's gonna spill over into this, or if someone reports UFOs, like weeks or months later, they'll start seeing cryptid activity. Or if you see orbs, and I don't know where I stand with any of it. I know, I can't discount witness testimony and the thousands of witnesses, incredible witnesses that, we've had over the years. I mean, you're talking hearing these things, hearing reports from all of everything from UFOs to Bigfoot to ghosts, whatever. You get these reports from credible witnesses like forest rangers, game wardens, police officers, doctors, lawyers, airplane pilots. And all these people are trained observers that really don't want to tell their story out there, but yet they've seen something they can't explain. And it's, they're trying to make sense of it. So that's kind of where I'm at. I want to help people make sense of what they've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for me, one of my main reasons for doing it is I want to experience it all myself too. Like I love having personal experiences because it helps me like grow as an investigator and like really actually try to understand it more. But I've had so many weird things happen that like I think I just have more questions. And like like you said though, if it is all connected, or like me and my one friend, we were talking about sometimes it seems like the universe is just playing like pranks on you or something. Like you're out there alone and all of a sudden you see this giant monster, and then like you said, you get home and there's a haunting occurring, or you see strange lights. It's just like, is something messing with us or what? And then you have this sort of occult idea about what's called egregore, which kind of goes into a collective belief in something actually ending up creating a entity or something that's actually real, through this collective thought of belief from a lot of people, which I thought was interesting.
Oh yeah, and you're talking about tulpas or tulpamancy.
Kind of like, in a way, like
it's like a thought form. It's like a thought form.
Yeah, like a collective group of people believing in something, making it become like a real thing. Like, let's say we all believe in this spirit that haunts this house, and we believe in it so much that it actually creates this energy or this form that is real. Because sometimes even with hauntings, you'll get into like the PK, like psychokinesis stuff, like people causing things to happen with their own minds,
right,
things like that. And how do we know if it actually is a ghost or if it's something that we're causing ourselves, or so I don't know, because sometimes you might be out, driving down, maybe someone's out driving down a dirt road and they're getting themselves all worked up, and they see a Bigfoot walk by because they were already feeling that, creating this kind of energy. So I don't know, that's just another theory though. Personally, I do think there is something out there though.
Well, yeah.
Just from what I've...
Well, yeah, and speaking of that, you said you had an encounter. Would you mind going into that?
Yeah. So my encounter happened once again in Talladega National Forest. First, I'd like to tell, so a few months before this, I was out there camping, and I started hearing something snapping branches like outside my tent, and it was like big, like you could tell it was pretty big branches, and it sounded like something was just taking them and holding them and just snapping them in half. And this went on for a few minutes. I got some of it on my audio, and then it got real quiet. So I turned my camera off, and all of a sudden the whole tree gets knocked over, like right next to my tent. So at that point I was just mad that I had to turn my camera off, which one thing I recommend people do is always have a tape recorder running no matter what. That way you don't miss anything. But this night I didn't do that. But I got lucky enough to catch the branches breaking, which was really weird because I couldn't think. Maybe it was a bear. I'm not sure, but it just sounded like something taking branches in its hand, snapping them in half. So a few weeks later, I was out again, and I did like a night hike out, kind of bushwhacked my way toward this peak that I knew was back there, and was going to follow it back the next day and continue hiking just off trail into the woods, which is how I usually go. So I found this little clearing and set up my tent after like going through this giant field of weeds, and I went to sleep, and I was like hearing some weird sounds and hearing some screech owls and things like that, and just listening, and kind of dozed off to sleep, and ended up having this weird dream about dogman aliens like coming to the earth and taking over the earth, which was just weird. So I woke up feeling all weird and like just feeling a little off. Well, I get out of the tent and I'm stretching, and I look up on the ridge. There's like a ridge to my left, and I'm looking up at the ridge, and I see this thing standing there. It had to be at least 6 or 7 feet tall, like with kind of shaggy, like lighter brown fur, was standing there, like looking at me. And I didn't really get a good look at its like face or anything, because right when I looked at it and it noticed me, it took just like one step back and was just gone. Wow. So I don't actually know if it was a Bigfoot or what it was, but I did notice that it appeared to be tall, like at least as tall as me, maybe a little taller. And it just, yeah, like I said, took a step back and was just gone. And then I was like, why do I never have my camera rolling when this stuff happens?
Right.
But
did you any vocalizations or anything else other than the trees and the snapping of the limbs?
That day I didn't, but at my personal spot closer to home here, near Bessemer, Alabama, I've actually heard some really strange vocalizations that sound similar to what they call the samurai chatter. Like,
yeah,
it sounds almost like a like some kind of native language or something that something in the woods is speaking. And when I heard it, I had been doing this live stream. I went out and camped, and we did like an 11-hour live stream where I camped out, and like everyone who was watching could hang out with me and watch, like while I slept, they could watch the background and see if anything walked by or anything happened. And it was like around 10 or 11 at night, and I was still up, and we were doing different experiments like spirit box. And so I started joking around and like making some, like doing some just strange calls and stuff, not anything that would actually call any kind of animal, I wouldn't think. And about like 20 minutes later, we hear this weird, coming from deeper in the woods, this weird like deeper voice and these high-pitched frequencies. Sounded like two things talking, and even the people in the chat could hear it, and they were saying that it was like, sounded like a native language or something. And I got audio of it, but you can hear these tones, and so we can't make out what exactly they're saying or what it's like, what it is. But it took everything I had in me just to stand there and not get out of there when I started hearing these voices coming from deeper in the woods. But I stayed, and it got quiet after that. Like, nothing really messed with me. We started hearing some dog barking and some, normal sounds that we don't know if it's actually an animal or if it's a Bigfoot mimicking an animal or what it is. Owls and things like that we'll hear. So just that was weird. And then I heard it one other time that my camera didn't even pick it up. The next time I heard the chatter, once again coming from that same area deeper in the woods. So that's been probably my favorite vocalization that I've heard was the chatter.
Yeah, and pretty incredible stuff. I mean, isn't it Ron Moorhead that actually recorded some of the samurai? It's called Samurai Chatter because I think for those listening, if you look up Ron Moorhead vocalizations or Samurai Chatter, it sounds like an Asian or an Oriental chatter, I guess. To him it did, and that's kind of why they nicknamed it. But did you happen to have any odd feelings? And I've got reasons for asking that, and I'll tell you in a minute. But did you have any like panic attack or fear or of anything?
So, several times I've had this confusion come over me, which really freaks me out when I'm in my regular spot because I've gone there so much. I know my way around there, but there's been several times recently too, specifically the other night and on the Friday the 13th, I went out on the full moon night, and I had this owl call that I was following, and I walked past the specific landmark tree that I use to know where I'm going, and I go certain ways. And I would end up getting completely mixed up and turned around backwards and end up back where I came from. And it was like completely blowing my mind because I know my way around these woods. And it was like literally like something turned the woods around or something. And so I would get feelings of confusion, feelings of sometimes of fear. When the vocalizations happened, I was definitely feeling the fear then, but like I said, I'm pretty good at standing my ground and staying there when things happen. I don't run generally. So, but yeah, I've definitely felt some unusual feelings come upon. There's even been the time I captured this red eye shine in the woods, which when I went back and did the size comparison, it appeared whatever it was had a pretty large head and was standing far enough back to where we couldn't even really make out what it was. But before I caught that on camera, because I didn't realize I caught it until I got home and was reviewing the footage. But before I caught it in the video, you can hear me talking about how I feel like something's watching me, and I feel off about something. I feel like there's a presence there, and then we caught these eyes watching me, so there was something there. I don't know what it was, because there are some animals that have red eye shine, but in this specific area, there's also been werewolf sightings of something that has red eyes. So, and Bigfoot. So it's like, was it one of those or was it something else?
Right.
All I know is that I felt something was there watching me. So.
Yeah, and the reason I asked that was I know just from my own personal experience, I've had a few I've had a few experiences that have made me question some things, but the main one that really bothered me, and I didn't really realize it until just recent years of actually getting into researching and investigating this phenomenon. But several years ago, I went up to a place called Fort Bluff, and it's just kind of north side of Coleman, Alabama, and it's overlooking Huntsville, and I think it's kind of in the same vicinity of Monsanto National Park. But I was up there waiting on my buddies to come up. We were going to camp there. I got there first. I hiked in, and I was setting up my tent, and I was gathering some firewood. And I grew up in the woods, grew up in South Alabama. I mean, nothing out there has ever scared me, ever. And for some reason, that particular time, for whatever reason, for about 10 or 15 minutes, I had this overwhelming panic. Like something was just wrong. Something was about to happen, something bad. I felt like I was being watched, and not just by one thing or I can't really describe it, but it was an overwhelming fear. And I kind of just, I started having to calm myself down. I sat down, I put my back to a tree, and I just started scanning, the everywhere. I was just looking and like waiting for something to jump out, and it soon passed. And then when it passed, it was completely over, and I was fine. And when my buddies came in, I told them about it that night, and they started telling me that, there's been reports of Bigfoot, whatever, some kind of cryptid spotted in that area. And, back then I didn't really think about it a whole lot, and we just kind of joked it off. But after I got into research, or a few years ago, just kind of hearing about this phenomenon called infrasound, where things are apex predators, or we know that lions and a lot of your tigers and a lot of your big apex predators can put off a low pitch hum that will strike fear in their prey and basically cause them to freeze. It makes them more susceptible to being caught or hunted or whatever. And I don't know. It was just weird feeling, but and we could go on another wild tangent about that. But the other encounters I had was just recently. I think last year I went down to Evergreen, Alabama, to a family, which I've still got to get back down there to. They still have reports down there. But I was telling the newspaper reporter I spoke with a couple of weeks ago, Lee Peacock, that within 5 minutes of getting to this location at the edge of a swamp, as soon as I got out of my truck and I was introducing myself to this family, we heard a tree hit the ground with major force. And when you talked about, you heard a tree just slam beside your tent. I mean, that's what reminded me. This thing was just a big crack and then a slam. And I said out loud, I said, "Are you kidding me?" and the lady said, "I've been telling you, this happens all the time." And then that same night,
I mean,
no, I was going to say that same night is
that,
I know it. And the same night is the night that I heard a low pitched mumbling in back in the swamps, and it sounded like I didn't hear any samurai chatter, but we could all hear someone talking, and it was just real low, but couldn't make it out. And I said, "Are there any farms or houses back here that backs up to this property?" And she said, "No, nothing." She said, "There's nothing but swampland all the way back, and this place is filled with moccasins. Somebody would be crazy to be back there right now." But we still heard it. But those are kind of my long encounters. But I've got one more for you. Not the Bankhead, but there is I've been camping there recently a good bit, but it's down, I guess, connected to the Bankhead Forest. But some buddies of mine who we actually go out and do some of these investigations. We were camping here near the river, and probably 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, I was awake and I heard something down by the river, like breathe real heavy and almost make like a groan. And the next morning, my buddy Kevin said, "Hey, did you hear a weird groan last night about midnight?" Or I was like, "Yeah, I thought that was you snoring or something." But I said it was really loud. And he said, "No, that was not me." He said, "But it freaked me out." So we both heard the same thing down by the river. And it was just really odd. And I know that area has had a lot of reports.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, pretty much every county in Alabama, you can find sightings. And, I mean, there's, of course, some hot spots and whatnot, but that's all awesome stuff. And, I would definitely think from what I've heard, the vocalizations that I've heard personally, that it is possible that they could use some kind of weird frequency to affect you, because the sounds that I was hearing was definitely strange, like frequencies I had never really heard any like human make with their voice, like really low and really high pitched, and just sounds weird. So I definitely think that it could be possible that could be something they could do. And then, yeah, I always find it weird too how whenever we do hear these voices, like generally they're just far away enough to where you can hear it, but you can't really make out what they're saying or anything like that. And as far as the fear feeling goes too, another connection is that it kind of reminds me of there's been certain paranormal investigations I've been on where I'll get hit with that sudden fear, either that or like a dread or some kind of just feeling of it's just something, like you said, something bad's about to happen. And so it's kind of interesting because it was, now that I think about it, there's been several times it's been a really similar feeling on an investigation, on an indoor location that I've had is out in the woods too. So I don't know what the deal with that is. I know that people have seen shadow figures that resemble Bigfoots in certain locations. And then there's one story, I think it was in one of John Keel's books, where he wrote about someone actually seeing a Bigfoot getting onto a UFO with two smaller figures. So, whether they are strictly in the woods or they can go other places too, I don't know. Maybe they can. Who knows? But all I know is that people have claimed to have seen them places they shouldn't be. And even the place that I go is not very far away from the city of Bessemer. So, and like I said earlier, people have sightings of them around cemeteries, including Dogman too, which maybe they like those areas because not a lot of people go there at night, except for people like me and, like people like us.
Right.
So I don't know. I do think that the infrasound is a possibility, though, with that fear feeling you feel like. Because another time, there was one time I was out camping and people in my live stream had told my wife to come out and play a prank on me. Well, little did she know, she thought I was camped like right off the road, and she like ends up getting herself mixed up in the woods trying to find me because she doesn't know where I am, which because I'm further back into the woods. And I hear her I hear this scream like come from the distance, and I was like, "What was that?" And then she calls me, and she's like, "I can't find you, and I'm out in the woods." I'm like, "Are you like serious right now? Like, why would you even do this?" And somehow they had convinced her to try to do this. She didn't even have a flashlight. So, like, I ended up getting out of my tent, hiking out into the middle of the night, trying to find her. And I found her eventually and got her out back to the road, which she had, like, somehow gotten in a good ways. And I was like, okay, we got to get you back to the road. So we get her to the road, and she told me when she was out there that she was hearing these weird frequencies with her own ears, like hearing these frequencies is what she described it as.
Wow.
And I know that a lot of Native American tribes, and they have these legends about these like ogres and like Bigfoot like beings or creatures that like to take women. So I was like, maybe they were trying to get you lost in the woods or take you, or please don't do this again. It wasn't a good idea.
Right. I don't know. I almost can't discount. We do know that feline, big cougars, tigers, all that they have the ability to do this. And maybe even she ran up on a cougar or whatever they want to call. I know people say that
exactly.
They don't exist, and Black Panthers don't exist, but I've heard about Black Panthers my entire life from my grandparents, my mom, my dad. And
I saw one.
Oh, did you? They're around,
Yeah.
and you know.
I saw one in Walker County. We were driving along this like dirt road, and I was even filming, but somehow it didn't get picked up on the camera. But we saw it run across the road, and like me and my wife both saw it. Black Panther. And I've actually seen, when I was in Virginia, I saw a mountain lion just standing on the side of the interstate. And I mean, this thing was like ripped and it's like so strong looking. And then the other Black Panther we saw, we were on the Appalachian Trail. We were in Vermont, and during a thunderstorm, we saw one. We were like hiking during a thunderstorm, and we saw one. Like it almost looked like it was like stalking us, but I'm guessing that once it kind of saw there was three of us, it like just kind of left us alone. But that one was pretty freaky because we were out, you know, actually hiking at that moment, not in a car or anything.
Yeah, you're kind of unprotected at that point.
Yeah.
They,
but yeah, they say that they're not out there, but they are.
yeah, and I know you know where Pelham, Alabama is, and there was a big new subdivision going in kind of near the Ballantrae Golf Course, and a lot of the excavators and even the new homeowners in the area started reporting seeing a cougar or a big cat. It wasn't a panther, but they started seeing it, and nobody believed them for a while, you know, forever. And I actually used to work in that area, and late one night I was coming through one of the areas behind the backside of that Ballantrae Golf Course. I had to lock up a gate there, and as soon as I got out of my car, locked the gate, got back in my car, I saw this thing just like ease across the road, and it was just a big cougar. It had a tail that was just as long as it was. It was big, fluffy, and this thing just creeped across the road in my headlights. I didn't get out of my car the rest of the night, so it's just it was. I know they're there.
It's unmistakable when you see them too. They look, the way they move and everything. Like you know, it's you know what it is when you see it. I'll tell this story real quick about the Alabaster area. A friend of mine had something really weird happen to her there. She used to kind of live out of this. I think they like worked on cars at this little car shop. There was like a little apartment in there that she lived in, and she one night had this, like, I'm trying to remember exactly how the story started. She had this thing like come up and like bang on the door, and she described it as being this like skinny, clear thing. Like it's really hard to describe what she saw, and she had a picture of it because she had a security camera, and I saw the picture and everything, and it just looks like this weird, translucent, skinny thing. And she said it was like banging on the door. Oh, and actually, here's how it started. She was out walking her dog, and she saw it. Her dog started barking at it, and it looks like, she said it at first she thought it was like a pole or something, but it started moving. And so she ran inside. That's when it started banging on the door, and she called the police. And so there is like a police report and everything that she had made about this. And, you know, they told her it was probably just a prank or something. But she showed me that picture, and it was weird. The security footage was erased. The only picture, like the next day when she checked it, it was gone. But she had a picture on her phone that she took of the thing standing there at the door. And, you know, you could see on the current security footage that it wasn't like a mark on the ground, but it was like this weird translucent thing, and it almost looked like it had like a heart or something that you could see. I don't know. It freaked me out when she told me that, and I was actually like over at that place, like with her, and I was like, am I gonna see this thing? Like that would be crazy. Like this sounds insane. And she said that the police had said that they had heard similar things in that area, but I wasn't able to find anything about it. But
well, how long ago has this been?
That was I think it happened like only 2 years ago.
And this was Alabaster?
Yeah, Alabaster, right near, kind of near the you know where the big thrift store is?
Oh yeah.
It's like near that area, kind of back. There's like some warehouses and stuff, and the place where she was staying was back in one of those warehouses.
Yeah.
Really weird though. It gave me chills just when I saw the picture and she told me what like the skinny thing. Like,
Well, I can. Here's what's going to shock you, and I can probably help you out with that story, and I can probably find out a lot about it because I mean we haven't talked about it, but I was a police officer in Alabaster for years, and
yeah.
I still know everybody out there and all the areas, and I was probably, if you want me to, I can probably just find that report, or at least.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see if we could, because like, she had the picture and everything, and I'd like to see if there was what the report said, if there was a report, and she seemed very credible to me, and still, she sent me the picture. I'll try to find the picture too and let you see it. But just a really weird story, and
yeah, it's one you don't hear. It's kind of an odd detail, and you don't really hear that ever. But there,
and I was like,
I've lived in Alabaster for years, but I mean, it's a great place to live. But there are some weird things that happen there, and I've been to a few of the calls myself.
Yeah, that's interesting, man.
And I was going to say some of the guys. I was going to say some of the guys that I've worked with have followed me on several adventures. I mean, we used to get together and go. We've been all over the state camping and kayaking and looking for this or that, or we've been to Old Bryce Mental Hospital late at night checking out things. We've been to Sloss Furnace. We've been all over the place trying to find the next adventure. So yeah, we're all in.
No, I totally understand. I've had some weird things happen at Old Bryce too. Yeah, I remember when I actually was staying at a house in Alabaster for only a few weeks in between moves, and I was always sitting out there in the backyard at night, like expecting to see the skinny thing, and just I don't know, it's just such a weird thing to think about because it's not, like you said, it's not one you hear often. But supposedly there had been other calls about something like that. So
it almost makes me think of what's called a rake.
Yeah,
and I know you've heard of that term. But being translucent, I'm not sure, but I don't know if anyone's ever seen one maybe that closely. It's just a super thin, emaciated looking ghoul type creature that people report seeing, and they're called rakes. And I don't really know the whole origin, but I know it's pretty odd. It's a weird detail.
Oh, definitely. And even up in the Huntsville area, I've heard of something similar to that. It's supposed to be living in there's like the big drainage ditches and like sewage pipes and things. I forget the exact area that it was in, but my friend who lives up there had told me about it, that something was supposed to live in those drains in the big sewage pipes that like doesn't have, it's like got really pale skin, doesn't have any I think it doesn't have any eyes, or it doesn't have any eyes because it's down in the dark and everything, and just another weird one that you just don't hear too often. And I actually have heard a few stories about like cave monsters in Alabama too, and I can't remember the name of the one, but so there's all kinds of. I mean, the Hines Road Witch is another really weird one. One thing weird, I don't know if this ever happened to you at Old Bryce, but there's been several times that this guy walked up. He's like, he wasn't wearing a shirt or shoes.
Oh my gosh!
A cigarette.
Yeah, go ahead and tell that story because I know exactly what you're talking about. Go ahead.
If you've seen him, that's great. Because at first I thought it was just like a homeless dude or something, but this one night we heard like it sounded like a whole group of people approaching us. Like you could hear men and women just talking like really loudly, and it got closer and closer to us. And then all of a sudden, that dude walks in, no shirt, no shoes. He walks in the room, and he's like, "Y'all got a cigarette?" And I was like, "Nah." And then he just walked off. But we literally heard a whole group of people walking up. So I don't know, like, I've seen him there, like, I think 3 or 4 times. Like, he'll just walk up and ask for a cigarette.
No.
And then he'll just walk away.
No,
But
the same group of guys, we were off duty, and we would go over there pretty frequently. But our first night over there ever, we ran into something. Really, I couldn't explain it because we were about to go in the front door. We had our night vision stuff with us and our recorders. We were going to get EVPs, doing all the typical ghost hunt thing. And we started hearing something moving to the left side of the building. So we backed off and moved back into the bushes. I think there was a cornfield there at the time too. But we backed off when we took out just took out night vision and started scanning the area. And I flanked around to the other side. We didn't want to, come up on anybody. We were hoping to be there by ourselves, but I didn't see anything. And I come back up to my buddies, and they were sitting there pointing at something on the other side of the building. And I was like, "What are you guys looking at?" And they said, "There's a guy standing there holding a machete." And I said, "You're lying." And I put my thermal up, and sure enough, there was a guy dressed up just like Mike Myers. He was in coveralls.
Oh my God.
And had on I thought he had on a mask at first, but his face was painted, and he was holding a machete. And at that point, we went off, into cop mode. At that point, we put flashlights on him and said, "Hey, we're off-duty officers. You need to drop the, machete," whatever. And the guy, he just pointed it at us and didn't make a sound. And believe it or not, I've got video of this guy, and it's further down on my Mysterious Huntsman Facebook page. If you scroll back down, you'll see like some weird stuff, but he's on there. And I was like, this guy's nuts, and we are out of our jurisdiction. We're not even supposed to be here. I think we're trespassing, so we just better back off. And
that's crazy, man.
Oh yeah, and we backed out of there, and we took our eyes off this guy for just a second, and he just disappeared. Never heard anything else out of him. All right, so a few nights later, we come back and actually get in there. Of course, we're on high alert, but nothing ever happened. We did, I'm running long now, but we got a couple of EVPs out of there. So we heard the old telephone bell ring. We thought we debunked it, but we heard it actually in the old hospital building next door. But we also heard that there was this guy that would come up and just scare people. And but that's pretty dangerous of him to just stand out there with a machete. Someone could really hurt him.
Absolutely.
But that's my story.
One night I was there, and this kid had a shotgun, and like you said, it's dangerous to just scare people. Well, he just all of a sudden fires it off down the hallway.
Oh, geez.
And at that point, I got away. I was like, I'm not hanging out with these people anymore. I got away from them. He said he saw like a hooded figure or something. I'm like, dude, that could have been a person. Like, don't do that, man. Like, don't just fire your gun off down the hallway of somewhere like this in the dark where people are always out there. I'm surprised someone hasn't gotten like shot out there. Maybe they have. I just haven't heard about it. But and actually another funny thing is that 2 of my cats that I currently have, we found them. They were just kittens that someone abandoned in Old Bryce, and we took them in and still have them to this day. So that's kind of cool too, a little connection to Old Bryce for me.
Oh yeah.
The 2 of my cats were found there. And then the weirdest thing that ever happened to me, I was there during the day just kind of exploring by myself, and I was in that little like furnace with the big smokestacks.
Yep.
I was in that room, and I threw a rock and asked if the spirits could like throw something back at me. So I just stood there for about 10 or 15 seconds, and I hear like this little sound, and then all of a sudden I hear this loud slam on like the roof. and it like startles me. I jump, and I got this all on video. I'm like shaking and everything. I start going outside, and then there's another loud slam. So at this point, I'm like, okay, there's a person here messing with me. So I go outside, and I'm like, yo, yo. And I'm like looking around, and I stayed for about 30 more minutes, looking around, trying to see if someone was there. There was no other cars there, not even at the front. And, I didn't hear any cars. I didn't hear anyone drive away. I didn't hear any sounds of people laughing or moving or anything. So I don't know if it was a person. They were really sneaky, but whatever, it was really strange. Just these loud slams on the roof, which I thought someone was up on the roof. But when I went and looked, it was kind of like it's all caved in now, but it was like more of a slanted like tin roof. And there was no one up there, no one on the outside, no one on the roof of the other building that I could see. It was just really weird, man. Like the place is weird. Some weird stuff happens there.
Yeah, it really is. And I haven't been there in years since I moved up here to Tennessee, but I want to go back because it's just a fun, cool place. If as long as you don't run into crazy idiots or go with idiots.
Machete guy.
Yeah, man. But it's a cool place. But hey, I know I'm running you. I don't want to keep you too long, but you've got a lot going on. You've got like you got YouTube channels. You got thousands of followers on your page, and if you don't mind, why don't you tell us what you got going on, and just kind of tell us how people can find you, and if they have a situation or if they want to tell you their story, how can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, so my paranormal work is under Spectral Wolfpack, which you can find on spectralwolfpack.com, or you can search that on YouTube. My other YouTube is Bigfoot Bob, which is really easy to find. And if you comment on any of my videos, I try to read all my comments, so I likely will find it and can send you my email there. I also have a documentary on Amazon Prime called Madhouse Paranormal Documentary.
Yep.
And the page on Facebook as well, which we're actually going to make a big announcement on that page tomorrow about our second documentary coming out. And then I'm also working on a book which should be out before the end of the year that is currently in the editing stages. So kind of just a lot about my personal experiences and some of my theories and stuff like that. So, but yeah, that's pretty much how you can find me.
That's awesome, man. You sound like you're staying real busy, and I'm definitely gonna keep an eye on you and what you got going on. And I definitely want to have you back. I know we didn't even really get into. We were just kind of, telling each other our stories, and just because we have some of the same connections, I guess, down there. But I definitely want to pick your brain on what you think is going on. Really, I mean, some of the theories you've got. We didn't even touch on the ET or the UFO stuff or the interdimensional. I mean, we could go for hours, but
absolutely.
If you ever want to come on, you got my information. Just hit me up. I'd love to have you back.
Oh, absolutely, man. Yeah, we can definitely do more because there's, like you said, so much to go over and talk about.
Yeah, there's tons. Yeah. And I come down to Birmingham pretty frequently, or to the Alabaster area. So, but just before we go, I know you're going to be at the Bama Bigfoot Conference down in. And tell us where that is, and who all's going to be there with you.
So let me look at the poster here. It's at the called the Lakeshore Inn and Marina, which is kind of near Double Springs.
Okay.
And it's going to be pretty much strictly Bigfoot speakers there. We got Lyle Blackburn, a guy named Henry B. May the Fourth, Brandon Lee Moore. Paul Holsey is running it, and he'll be there. Expedition Bigfoot, which is they have the museum in Georgia, which is really awesome. Joseph Flippo, Datso, which is my friend Jason Lawson, Relic Films, and then performances by the Cooter Brown Band. So it should be a fun little time. Lots of good speakers. I think they're going to have food and whatnot, and I'll have some stuff that I'm selling there, like some of my own merchandise and things that I sell at events. So it should be a really cool little time. Lots of good speakers, and if you want to learn about Bigfoot, or you have, like you said, if you want to tell someone a sighting, these events are the place to do that, because it's a like-minded people.
Right, and I may see you down there. I'm going to try and get away, and
that'd be awesome, man.
Yeah, I got chores or honeydew list a mile long, but she understands when I have to go. So, but
yeah,
Bob, thank you so much for coming on. It was great to meet you and catch up, and I hope we can stay in touch. And if you ever need anything out of me up here in Tennessee, just let me know.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. It was awesome.
Well, that'll just about do it for another episode of Mysterious Huntsman. And thanks to Bigfoot Bob for coming on and getting to know him. And, man, just a great guy and a wealth of information. If you want to hear more about Bigfoot Bob, check him out at Spectral Wolfpack Paranormal on his Facebook page. Or you can, I'm sure you can find him on Instagram, Spectral Wolfpack Squad. And he's got a really big YouTube channel. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great week, and we will talk to you soon. And remember, if you want to be a guest on the show, you can hit me up at mysteriousHuntsman@gmail.com, or just go straight to my new website, mysteriousHuntsman.com, and there are links on there to the podcast and also straight direct contacts. All right, guys. Thanks. Have a great week, and we will talk soon.